Hey everybody, it's week 21. We didn't get a frost last week like we were afraid of, so we are still harvesting crops. We still have plenty of stuff growing out in our victory garden, but we're also getting a little bit to the end of the season. We're kind of getting a little bit more to that cleanup time of the year. So we're gonna head out to the victory garden and take a look at what's going on.
So if you're anything like us, this time of the season you may have gotten a little bit behind on your weed control. So we do have some weeds that are kind of coming in here, and I just want to point out that it's a good time to pull them if you have weeds in your garden that are going to seed like these are. It's a good time to pull them, and you actually would be better off not putting them in the compost pile or dropping them in place, but actually getting them out of the garden because they're going to seed. And another thing you might want to do is just take pictures of the seed heads. That way this winter you could do a little bit of weed identification by looking at the seed heads. Sometimes grasses are a little hard to identify. So we've got a couple different kinds of grasses here. And then we've got some other various weeds here too that we should really get out of the garden at this point.
So here's another weed that we really don't want to seed in our garden. And if you've seen early videos, you know that I like to eat edible weeds, but this one is one that you do not want to eat. So this is Nightshade, also known as deadly nightshade. It just, it kind of looks like it might be a wild berry, but it is actually somewhat toxic. So if you consume a couple of these berries, they're going to make you sick. So this is one that we definitely don't want growing in our vegetable garden. So we also wanted to mention these squash plants, these zucchini, have some pretty bad powdery mildew. You may notice this on your squash plants, especially if they are growing in a shadier spot or it's a little bit cooler or wetter. It seems to affect them more. So at this point, the whole plant is pretty much covered, and we're probably just going to want to take it out. It's not really producing a lot of zucchinis. It's just getting to the end of its cycle. So we're going to want to take these out, and then there's kind of two schools of thought on this, whether you want to compost this or whether you want to just get it out and away from your garden. So if you want, I typically would compost this, just assume that, it might come back next year. Other people say, you don't want the spores in your compost. It's not going to get hot enough to kill them. So if you were worried about that, you could always remove them and throw them in the trash just to keep them out of your garden.
We had mentioned last week or a couple weeks ago that it's a good time to start a new compost pile so that your other one can finish. So we're just going to start one here in another corner of the garden. And, as Sal said, you can compost things that have powdery mildew or not, and we're just going to go ahead and add those things to our pile. So now is a good time of year as you're pulling in your harvest and cleaning things up in your garden to just go ahead and designate a spot and start a new compost pile.
So our tomato plants, like I said, we didn't get that frost, so all of our tender crops are still growing, and we're gonna pull out the squash, but the tomatoes look so good and so healthy. We're just gonna let them keep growing, and they might not turn red at this point just because it is getting cooler and later in the season, but it's fine to harvest some of the nice big green tomatoes, bring them inside and see if they'll ripen up on your kitchen counter. Otherwise, there are some fun recipes to try if you want to eat some green tomatoes as well.
It's a good time to think about any of the seeds that you're saving right now too. So the bean plants, these are definitely died back. We're going to pull all of these in. And I also just want to point out, if we want to save the tithonia flower, there's a bunch of these on here. So it's a good time to take any of these dead seed heads and bring them inside.
Yeah, so next week we're going to have a video and just kind of talk about how we're going to progress moving forward. The season's really winding down. There's not a whole lot going on in the garden. Everything's pretty slow, and we're just getting to that point in the year. But we do want to make sure to let you know what we're thinking, how we want to move forward going into fall and winter, and then even thinking about next year, our Victory Garden project. So for sure in the next week, we would love to hear from you as this planning process goes on. So make sure to leave a comment or send us a message on Facebook, send us an email. But let us know what you'd like to see moving forward, and we'd love to incorporate that into our planning process.
Yeah, and just I just want to put a plug in for a few upcoming things that we have. In October, there's going to be a full-length class on putting your garden to bed. That's going to be with a guest teacher from the university, so that'll be a really good program. And then Sal and I are also going to take it to the kitchen and do a little bit of cooking sometime in the next month. So we're looking forward to that. And I think that's it for this week. Yeah, so we will see you all next week. And again, like Sal said, don't forget to, use the comment section below the video and use the Facebook page. And yeah, thanks for coming. Bye.